You everybody for joining us. My name is Zack Milem. I am one of our cloud sales engineers here at Trend Micro. I really focus on channel and some of the business strategy that goes along with helping you develop channel strategies and the technical pieces that go with it. And I'm joined by my colleague Vince Kearns. I'll let him introduce himself.
Thanks, Zach. Vince Kearns. I am a cyber risk specialist here at Trend Micro, and what I concentrate on is our cyber insurance ecosystem, and where risk and the measurement of risk is really at the forefront, and really excited to take some of what I have learned and apply it to our partner community, and being able to deliver the messages that our customers, joint customers, need to hear around risk, assessing risk, and being compliant. So really looking forward to the chat today, Zach.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, we'll talk about those. I know we're going to touch a little bit on some of the SEC stuff that goes in there, and we're going to wrap it up with how our XDR and ASRM platforms can really help this entire conversation that we're going to start at the beginning with. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. And, when we start looking at the mindset, and what we're seeing a big shift in is that cyber risk is not just, and security isn't this part of an organization anymore, right? We're really starting to see that cyber risk is really being seen as a business risk. As we talk about the SEC stuff, there's much bigger implications than ever before for an organization and some of the executives in the organization, and what those happening. So now, we have the CISOs that are having to deal with not just what's going on, making sure that they can actually go and report to the board, what that looks like, what the exposure rates, things like that are happening, and how do they, Vince, as we're rolling up here, the cyber resilience, right? How are they planning to be able to deal with if something happens? How are they responding to that? And how do they make sure that it doesn't happen again, right? And all those things while being consolidated, dropping their costs, and having to deliver a better experience without spending as much money as they did the last year.
Exactly. It's not like CISOs didn't have enough to do, right? I mean, and now with especially the publicly traded companies with the SEC rule, we'll talk about it a little bit, but just the role of the CISO is evolving, and Zach kind of hit it on the head. If something happens, you can't let it happen again, and that is squarely on that CISO to make sure that it doesn't. But what can they do to prevent it from happening in the first place? We're going to talk about a few of the strategies that as some of the experienced channel partners that are on this call. We've been doing this for years now, but getting them to understand that the attack surface risk management piece of this is now coming to the forefront, because when you start measuring risk, truly measuring it, you can start seeing, all right, I need to take care of this first, and then that. You can really start prioritizing things now. And I think that's what we're going to see in the CISO role going forward, is being able to prioritize better, right? And having a platform and a strategy that allows them to do that is going to be critical for CISOs going forward.
Right, absolutely. And I think, and as we go in and we look here, those platforms, and we'll see it in a little bit, of being able to understand that when you have something that might be a high risk piece, then how does that actually interact with the other parts of your organization as well, right? And so when we start talking about cybersecurity outcomes and what can actually happen as we come in, I think this goes without saying. I think all of you as partners are seeing this at a large scale of customers wanting to consolidate. And it's not so much about the cost, right? That is a consideration, but what we hear more and more is, just the more is the cost of the people, right? And the headcounts that organizations have, and that consolidation that they're being forced to do for different organizational things and things like that. But the big piece is they can't lose the quality of their cybersecurity, right? They have to be able to still deliver great outcomes, do those things, and be able to play in a different world. And our customers are really looking for partners and solution providers like Trend Micro to be able to say, okay, you know what? At the end of the day, like, I need to have something that works. I don't care who you're competing with and things like that. I just need something that works and gives me that information and the intelligence that I need when I need it. Right.
Exactly. Being able to And that's what's so great about the platform approach is we're able to feed the CISO and his team the right information at the right time, and in configuration, being able to configure that data as it comes to them to make those critical decisions at the right time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that goes right with that is, the other piece of security for as long as I've been in this industry, has really always been a reactive approach, right? And when you started to have, hey, I want to have a proactive stance, let's start having these things, there was a lot of pushback on that. And with some of the stances that's changed in the very short term past, that's a very different piece, right? And so now with the platform approach with Vision One and the pieces that Trend Micro can bring to the table, like that visibility, that proactive defense, being able to start showing what those risk pieces are, as Vince was talking about, and being able to start formulating ways that you can reduce what that the ways that you can even be attacked are, and then not only that, having a much better way of saying, okay, how can I even then limit a blast radius of an attack too, right? So it's a two-pronged piece as you start doing that proactive defense.
Absolutely. And for everybody on the call, that this visibility thing is one of the things, as we talked about earlier, about the changing of the role of the CISO. Visibility is just at you just can't put a high enough priority on it. And having, you may not necessarily, I may not take care of this vulnerability at this exact time. I may put a virtual patch on it for now, but just the visibility into where their risk is critical. And as a channel partner, when you're talking to your customers, talking about visibility will resonate and accelerate your conversations with your customer by talking about the visibility that the solutions you're providing them provides the CISO.
Absolutely, and I think that goes right along with the visibility is, automation. The idea that automating the entire workflow and process of not only how do I actually deliver real-time protection, how do I as new things are deployed and do that, but then also it's how do I automate things like what's out there and how do I know if something changes, right? As well as once we do have an incident and we've gone through the detective response and we know how we clean it up, then how do you put something in place so that if we see that same threat try to propagate within our environment, we don't have to go through that entire process again, right? We have a containment and we have a cleanup process that can be automatically deployed across our environment once we've seen it and dealt with it once, right? And those shifts are a huge, huge change.
Yeah, because the bad guys, they like to go back at the well, right? So it's they try it once, it didn't work. Ooh, I'm going to try that again with a little bit different twist. So these ransomware gangs are really good at taking their method of attack and improving upon it and being able, to Zach's point, automated response to this stuff of what we've already learned is critical, and solutions and platforms like Vision One are able to do that. Good point, Zach.
Absolutely. And I think one of the big pieces is the Trend Micro as a company has really embraced the idea that as we consolidate, we can actually add a whole different level of resilience here, right? So, and I'm going to kind of build this out kind of quickly here so we can make sure we can dive into some of the meat of the rest of the presentation. And yes, hey, minimize cost and complexity. That's the first like table stakes piece as somebody walks in for consolidation, right? But then as we start going, okay, you know what? Now, if we have everything together, then let's be able to have one place that we manage compliance, how we report on compliance, how we're able to look at trends over time for compliance, right? All those pieces in one space, and we're pulling together what used to be all those point products, and you start going, okay, well, that's good. Now I can report on that, right? Compliance is something that's there. And then all of a sudden, like, I think, this says reduce silos. I think the big piece is the centralized visibility, right? And being able to allow those different parts of an organization that are somewhat segmented because they limit blast radius. It's a check and balance system. There's things like that. But instead of like I think it kind of maybe reduces the friction between silos, right? The silos exist to be able to contain different situations and make sure that no part of the organization like can cause a catastrophic thing to happen. But now being able to understand why they're doing it, what's going on with that central visibility, that understanding of what's happening and what's going on makes a huge difference to then start working together towards common goals. And then, the other piece now is us as a vendor, we can now look at and take all this information that's now going into this central area and let's put it into our data lake and let's start applying machine learning and AI to it and being able to look at behavioral analytics, being able to look at automated alerts and prioritization and then being able to tie that in with our threat research that we have globally and the hundreds of millions of endpoints that we're touching and all those things. And all of a sudden, what was a play that was originally just to minimize costs and complexity now all of a sudden has morphed into this ability to be proactive, be able to have that resiliency, being able to have right there inside one platform the ability to protect what were all those point solutions, but then being able to tie all that incidents together, being able to understand what an entire attack chain and all those things are. And I think having that kind of visibility and that response capability, I think, is a key to maybe prevent some of the things in the new SEC regulations that Vince is about to talk about.
Well, Terry, I want to chat about this slide real quick.
Absolutely.
Because what if you take this slide right here and understand it and get your customer to understand all the way up to the resilience. A great example or a great use case for this is a conversation with a cyber insurance underwriter. And I relate this whole slide to cybersecurity maturity. So if your customer has insurance or is looking for insurance, then this slide right here can help you arm them with what's needed in order to check the boxes for a policy, but also just have that cyber security maturity conversation with it. So I had to throw that use case in there, Zach, is that as for our channel partners to enable our joint customers to have that use case. This slide is a perfect example of a roadmap for you to work with your customer for that use case.
Well, in the cyber insurance realm, like if somebody doesn't have all these pieces here, and correct me if I'm wrong, like either they would have a trouble getting underwritten for cyber insurance, or their premium would be a very astronomical amount, correct?
Absolutely. It's they're gonna the attestation of do you have certain things, and I'm actually going to go through a lot of those in the next Accelerator series. So but having certain controls in place like MFA and XDR, well, they call it EDR. But yeah, if you either have those in place or you're going to be paying a lot more for your premium or not even qualify at all. And that's why working with channel partners that understand those types of security controls that the carriers are looking for. And I'll talk about it at the end today about the next session here in a few weeks about the topics that cyber insurance will take care of.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's key, right? Is, as we move forward, like these are different thoughts and conversations that, when you bring those up, you can make sure that you're not having your customers like having to spend extra or double, or, if that's something they want to go down the road for, making sure that you're helping them make choices that deliver that. I just
wanted to throw that use case in there because, as a formal channel manager, I want to keep things relevant, and that, man, you see this information, how can I apply it tomorrow or today with my conversations with my customers? So I just threw that use case. Here's another great use case, which is the SEC rule that was passed last year, and it's being litigated as we speak, right? I mean, so basically what it is that the SEC is trying to put some teeth into a publicly traded company and how they're addressing their cyber security strategies. So first and foremost, it's only for publicly traded companies. That's where the SEC comes in. And really the the teeth of the rule, or the basic fundamentals of the rule, is that there must be somebody on the board or in the C-suite that is responsible for the cybersecurity strategy. Because if class action lawsuits, unfortunately, are a big piece of being in a publicly traded company or on the board, right? And if you make mistakes to where a lawyer will feel like that they can extract money out of that company for making those decisions, there's one person that is going to be at the forefront. I call it the one throat to choke, right? And if I was a seller, okay, if I'm a channel partner, I would want to know who that is in that organization, because that person is as close to the purse strings as just about anybody else, because their neck is on the line if something happens that leads to a class action lawsuit, or even if it doesn't. If they make poor decisions in their cybersecurity strategies, they're opening themselves and their company up to investigation from the SEC. The other piece of this is the that you have to report a material breach within 4 days. Wow, man, that's short, right? I mean, half the time in 4 days, you don't know if it's even a serious enough incident. But that's where it kind of gets fuzzy, is that what is the definition of a material breach? That is what's being litigated right now. And that usually takes it's probably going to be the next 3 or 4 months. We're going to see those judgments come down, and we're going to get a lot of clarity of what a material breach is. But you have to report it within 4 days, and that's where, when we talked about earlier, being able to have that visibility and see the risk and being able to respond to it quickly is critical. And that's where you're on the right here, where our platform is able to assist. It probably is a lot of cases going to be the CISO still, but there's probably going to be, in a lot of organizations, somebody else in the C-suite or on the board that's responsible for this. And as a seller, if you know who that is and can get to that person, if you don't get to them, your competition probably will. So how about that? I mean, there's that one person that you're going to really come to the forefront, the juice bully, as I call it, the ones that make the decisions for the cybersecurity strategies for these firms. And I'd like to say a little bit more about it, but until the lawsuits are done here the next few months, it'll be a little more clear, probably around summer. Usually takes these things about that long to really become clear, but it's coming. And it's gonna help you sell to your customer. And Zach and I would love to talk to you about that further if need be.
Yeah, absolutely. In those pieces. And so, I know we're gonna spend just a second here. If anybody has not seen the kind of the Vision One story and ecosystem here, Vince is gonna share it with you here for just a second, and we'll dive in on one part of it here right after that.
Yeah. So we go back to the visibility, right? And going back to that SEC rule, if you have the visibility, you know where your risk is. And for us, you're going to see here in a slide where your risk score all of a sudden goes up. That's you need to address that. And depending on what that risk is, your risk is here. You get hit by Log4j. For us, your risk score goes up. You mitigate Log4j, your risk score goes down. If you ignore those signals, if you ignore the alarm bells going off, man, that is on that customer. And that's where a lot of services come in. Managed solutions can help out with that. But I feel like, as I talk to some of the regulators and some of these insurance carriers, our strategy around the zero trust architecture, because we have an XDR foundation that is solid, right? The zero trust architecture leading into the key piece, attack surface risk management. That is the story that, as a trend partner, if you are able to effectively communicate our attack surface risk management strategy, they're gonna start going, whoa, okay, I didn't know we could do that. I didn't know that risk could be measured on an ongoing basis, updated every hour. Again, a user case in insurance, they assess risk once a year. Well, with our platform, you can assess risk literally every hour. And we could sit here, and I'm sure everybody on the call has seen this slide before, but our comprehensive native platform is solid, and native is key. I mean, we built all this stuff. We're a 35-year-old company that hasn't. We've acquired companies, but that was years ago. And it's now baked into our native platform versus bolting on things like some of our competitors do.
Yeah, and you know, that's a great segue in here as we go into really looking at, you know, when we start talking about what is the big differentiator, right? And so this conversation has been around risk and compliance and resiliency, and we've talked about attack surface risk management, and you know, this is the ability to discover, assess, mitigate. And when we talk about that, that's, you know, yes, it's endpoints, it's looking at cloud resources, it's looking at identity, it's looking at a lot of different things within the organization, right? And we're able to say, okay, these attack surfaces, here's what they're vulnerable to. You know, here's, you know, what we would recommend making changes to go from a high risk to a medium risk and eventually a low risk, right? And seeing that happen. And then at the other side, you know, you have, okay, if we see this and we reduce the risk, it would make sense that, you know, the actual detection response, right? So here's the idea. So we minimize the risk. Okay, so now the surface isn't as vulnerable. So then what actually happens if something goes on, we should have a smaller amount of things to have to investigate and triage, right? Well, then once we have investigated it, we have that plan, and we talked about it a little bit before. Now let's send something over to mitigate and put this in so we can now mitigate those risks and further reduce that attack surface, right? And being able to go through there and do that and keep it from happening again. And then, you know, from there, let's start looking at here's, you know, we can reduce the number of actual incidences because of that proactive mitigation there when we come across the bottom. And then we can start going, okay, here, once we kind of understand what's going on and that machine learning and AI, it starts prioritizing, here are your higher risk areas. Here's where, when you see something happen in this part of your environment, take action right now. Do not wait, right? Here's areas that you can say, yeah, you know what, hey, we can wait for that, but no, this, go handle right now, right? And when you start looking at this and start having some of these feedback loops and things like that start happening, you start taking some of the like the ideas and those feedback processes from something that, you know, maybe a customer might be familiar with digital transformation, or somebody in the C-suite in the business. Likely, and I've had some conversations with this actually really recently. A lot of your business execs may not understand digital transformation or agile development and things like that. But if you start talking to them about and asking them about Lean Six Sigma and Lean Six Sigma Black Belt and things like that, those are things they understand, right? And this process, that the feedback loop of constantly optimizing and using outcomes to then deliver, how do we make a better prediction and do all those things? That's exactly what all this is, right? And so that's a huge differentiator is having both of those pieces within the platform, as well as all the actual detection and investigation response for all the individual areas that we protect, right? And that people know Trend Micro for.
Yeah, Zach, I love this slide, and you did it, man. I saw new ways of how to use this slide, but you know, team, the EPP is where we used to be. EDR, XDR is where we're kind of in the middle, and the next evolution of cybersecurity, when it talks about the basic endpoint strategies, is attack surface risk management, right? And so I just, well, you know, for those of us who've been around for a few times, we go back to EPP, EDR, XDR, and now this strategy added on to a native XDR platform is critical for our joint customers to make the right decisions. And as Zach mentioned, mitigate where I need to now and put off what I choose to later. We make it super easy to do that in our native platform. Great stuff.
Yep. And so I'm going to do just a couple. If you haven't seen it yet, this is the attack surface risk management. This is the executive view where you can look at over time. This is a overall view of pulling all the different areas together. You know, is if you haven't seen this, you know, reach out to your account manager. We'll spend some time discussing it with you, showing it to you as far as what the individual areas, as far as the exposure, attack overview, security configuration, as well as how it's different along the different types of assets and stuff that we have down here. As well as, you know, when we actually start looking at investigations, right? So this is the XDR piece, and seeing like when we go and we look at a workbench and we see something that's happening, being able to very quickly, okay, here's all the desktops that this has gone on, here looking at information, being able to look at here's where something happened, and starting labeling it. Here's the lateral movement. It went from this person's desktop to a print server, and then from a print server over to a domain controller, right? And there was a secondary administrator that was probably some kind of an account compromise that was used to access this. But seeing that propagation of the threat and visually being able to represent it, and then being able to say, okay, hey, let's even zoom out from this, and we can look at some other things. And so, if you haven't seen this, if you don't understand this and what this impact is, these are key pieces that we definitely want to be able to show you and visit with you on, and do that. And as our time's coming up here, we want to make sure we get to the call to actions too, right? So you might be saying, okay, so what can I do right now with my customers? So if you aren't aware, there are cyber risk assessments that actually go into and do kind of like a point in time scan for your customers that fall within like the ASRM. So instead of being ongoing, we do give them a point in time scan and can say, okay, hey, based on our intelligence, this is where your standing is and what's there. And so, here is the QR code. You can scan it. You can look at that, and take a look at that. There is also a ability here to, if you want to do a co-branded assessment with Trend, where you can go to the QR code here on the left and request through the partner portal a co-branded assessment, and we can go through that with you. And it would actually be something that's branded as your partner organization goes out, and you can then use that in collateral and material, and then track when those come in from customers and be able to do that, as well as the link for Vince's next accelerator piece here. So yep.
The value add of those assessments, that if you do not have assessments already offered for your customers, please take a look at ours, use them. And again, it's your assessment powered by Trend, and it's just a value that can give you instant credibility with your customer to say, hey, look where your risk is here. In your email, in your Office 365, you have this risk on this desktop, and it's just value that visibility. Remember, visibility that they didn't have, and you can be the one that can bring that to them using our assessments. But again, they're your assessment powered by Trend.
Absolutely. I saw something pop up in the Q&A, but it looks like it already got answered.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hey, this has been great, Zach, and I love talking to partners. And as Zach mentioned, there on the right, you can register for the one on April 18th, where we're going to talk nothing but cyber insurance, and how you can create a menu so you can create a menu that you can pick off of, your customer can, of how they can prepare for that conversation with the cyber insurance underwriter, and some tips and tricks about how you as a partner can add value to your customer when they choose to add cyber insurance as part of their risk mitigation strategy. So good stuff. Zach, this has been fun, man. I really appreciate y'all letting me join you.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime. We love having you over here in the channel side of the world, and your expertise in the risk and assessment and insurance is invaluable. So thank you so much for joining us. And I want to thank all the partners that joined us as well. Again, if you have any questions, anything, let us know. Oh, I just saw a Q&A pop up here. If oh, no. So if you do have anything, reach out to your account managers. You get to ask. We'd be happy to see what we can do, and go from there.
Have a great day.